Children of the Universe by Professor Dr. Ante Simonić.
Chapter 11 Evolution of the Society. Human inherited its social affinities from ancestors, and many animals also show the tradition of living in communities. Some species of fish, birds, and insects, wild beasts, and monkeys. We believe sociability is one of the bases of creation of human civilization and culture. It has been built for thousands of years on principles of social-cultural evolution, which has become inherent to human. The writer Stanislaw Jerzy Letz, 1909 to 1966, says, "There are no new directions. There is only one, from one person to the other." The exchange of goods and ideas has gradually intensified. Tradition and collective memory have formed, and many nations slowly developed own personality. Humankind is connecting into a unity which assumes a form and adopts new contents. Harmonization closes a circle at the blue planet. So, an individual incident becomes a global event. Since flourishing in great masses is the precondition for survival, humanity conquered the surface of the entire earth through instincts for reproduction and organized expansion. It was intertwined with mental maturation of people and the growth of collective spirituality, whereby socialization has a great importance. Psychical factors gradually overpower somatic determination, so spiritual growth suppresses general phylogenetic determination. This facilitates the birth of civilization's institutions, and T. de Chardin says that Earth has found its soul. For thousands of years, people have been developing abilities of observation, comparison, systematization, perceiving details and cause and effect relationships, perception of the importance, abstract thinking, generalizations, local thinking, counting, writing, and keeping, the ability of reviewing and transferring knowledge. Knowledge in various fields of human activities has been created, compiled, and upgraded. Human activities range from hunting, traveling, keeping fire, breeding animals, planting, using tools, handling tools, building dwellings, making dishware and jewelry, to mythological and religious cognition of the world, space, and time. And here we are today, the way we are and not more peculiar. And the majority of our contemporaries have the impression that the present-day way of living could not be different from what it is. When did our ancient ancestor notice the existence of space and time? The important determinants of the world which people traditionally recognize and include into the basis of global humanity. Namely, space can be imagined as a vast reservoir, which is an ocean in which various forms of matter and energy and information, that is, passing forms, which do not leave traces in space, are sorted. By analogy, time is also like a reservoir of various spatial information. Obviously, time has an explicitly expressed dimension of subjective experience, because spiritual experience of human reflects in it. That is why religions give it much significance to time. So, for instance, Islam shows tapestries in which present time is intertwined with eternal time and meets future, and Hebrews pronounce it a real dimension in which all changes occur. Thus, time grows into an adjustable medium in which the great play of the universe takes place. Reasonably, theophany and epiphany are included in the system of recording time. The human being has become a social being as a result of learning and accepting the norms which are transferred as experience of teachers, parents, families, tribes, nations, sects, classes, and civilizations through oral or written means, education, awards, and punishments. Obviously, as communities grow, a new artificial system of stratifying the Homo species comes into existence. On the basis of their biological triads, people are divided into the feeble and the strong, the weak and the persistent, the sick and the healthy, the fertile and the infertile, the hungry and the full, the cowardly and the brave, the clumsy and the skilled, the short and the tall, etc. And social hierarchy introduces completely new categories. If we compare the duration of nuclear evolution with physical, chemical, biological, and finally social evolution, we will see that changes are accelerating. To be more precise, the early phases of development were long and the changes happened slowly. Each successive evolution phase, however, was shorter and shorter. Namely, the nuclear and the related physical and chemical evolution lasted from the beginning of the universe to the emergence of life on Earth. In total, they amount to more than 15 billion years. Biological evolution started when life first appeared on Earth and continued alongside the nuclear, the physical, and the chemical evolution until the creation of the first human societies for a period of 3 billion years. Finally, we have been undergoing the social evolution for the last 2 to 5 million years, which does not mean that the older kinds of evolution play no role. Chapter 11.1 Herd. A herd is a social community at the lowest level of savagery. It was a form of life in which pre-humans were changing from exclusively biological to social beings. Pre-humans used to live at least partially on trees, surviving by collecting fruits and simply grabbing what they needed. At that time, pre-humans started to walk upright and use their front limbs as hands. The jaws, which had for some time been used for much more than taking food, were no longer used for biting and tearing. They became more delicate and were used primarily for chewing. Social institutions were still not differentiated. There were no magic concepts, nor marital constraints. Strong males dominated females and offspring and provided them with protection and defense. It is interesting how E. Mayer elaborated on the significant influence of polygamy, the institution of leaders' abilities and initiative on the development of humankind. The way of reproduction of primitive hominid communities ensured to group leaders enormous reproductive advantages. Polygamy is widespread even among existing primitive human tribes, and it is the individual with leadership qualities had the greatest chance to have several wives. Pre-humans discovered language, which was primarily not phonetic but kinetic. There was no division of tasks in the process of providing the necessities for life and cooperation, or if it existed, it was random. The horde usually had only 10 members, and they used stones and branches as tools. Nowadays, the term horde refers to pre-human aspirations of a group of people who are unable to connect their identity with those of other people, which results in limiting such activities only to the own local group. Unfortunately, the history of humankind is characterized by aggressive and antagonistic horde-like relations between different communities. Chapter 11.2 Family and Clan. The family was traditionally comprised of members of close kin, most commonly parents and children of one or more generations. Biological, reproductive, economic, and educational needs were satisfied within the family. Group marriage appeared, and the existence was not based solely on appropriation but also on the production of goods. Humans tamed fire, started using stone tools, and engaged in subsistence farming. The feeling of belonging to a group of the same kin and religious and magic beliefs developed within families. Within the family, humans cultivated traditions and provided care for children, the old, the sick, and the weak. The family has been preserved as the fundamental civilization value up to present time. It determines our biological existence to a great extent, and human life is best developed within it. It provides spiritual, moral, and social growth. Therefore, the United Nations proclaimed the year 1994 the Year of the Family. However, that does not mean that the family has to have the absolute power over its members and to endanger the right to independence of each individual. Also, one should fight against the abuse of the family by the state and other social institutions aimed at extortion and control of individual family members. That is why I would like to quote Gibran's wise words. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you yet, they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinity, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Clans were developed during the Middle Age of savagery by uniting a few families of the same kin. A need for a stable working community motivated several families to start living together. Namely, production, consumption, and ownership of land were based on collective principles. Members of a clan defended each other and fought together. They cherished a blood feud and had a common name. Men and women had the same right to vote, and they used it to manage and choose and replace chiefs. Marriage within a clan was forbidden, and the property of the deceased belonged to all clan members. In the beginning, the clan was based on blood relations on the mother's side, matriarchal genes, and it gathered acknowledged descendants of a certain ancestry. This, however, did not mean that women reigned. Gynecocracy. It was simply a way to balance paternal and maternal legal principles. The era of clans brought the inventions of hoes, pottery, and weaving. Women dominated in land farming, raising children, taking care of fire, food, and the entire household. This is probably the period in which women managed to breed first domestic animals. Gender division of labor was pronounced, and the importance of women grew with the development of farming. Social superiority of women led to matriarchy. Obviously, the relationship of men and women is, in addition to being a sexual partnership, determined by economic activities. Although economic and sexual activities aim to facilitate survival, it does not mean that affective factors played no role. Affective propensities have been present since the pre-human phase among individuals in the form of feelings among sexual partners, parents, and children, and the feeling of affiliation to own group. The Neanderthal took care of the sick and the weak as well. Later development of animal husbandry and land farming, primarily due to the invention of the plow and the use of draught animals, strengthened the economic and social importance of man. The ancestry on the father's side and males as heads of the families became dominant, patriarchal genes. Male strength and persistence came into focus since they were required for plowing, hunting, fishing, and fighting. Namely, bows and arrows, nets and boats were used more often, and skills of using weapons and metal forging became important. Gradually, labor and power is divided not only based on gender but the age as well. That is, gerontocracy appears. Simultaneously, individualization processes were intensifying to the detriment of collectivization processes. In the course of history, various clan communities achieved significantly different levels of development and civilizational accomplishment. Some clan communities created primitive and unproductive environments, while others, for instance ancient Greeks, achieved much admired cultural accomplishment which were later adopted by many nations. Chapter 11.3 Brotherhood and Tribe. Clans sometimes joined to form brotherhoods, fratrias, and most commonly 2 or 3 brotherhoods join together to form a tribe. These communities represent the organization of the clan-tribe society, and they consist of people of different levels of kinship. They still used to live by the principles defined by clans, but the tribal system increasingly influenced the framework of political organization. Each tribal sub-community was independent in many activities, but its activities complemented the labor of other sub-communities. All members of a brotherhood were considered to be descendants of the same ancestor, and they formed a narrow economic, cultural, and military unit occupying a common territory. Tribe members shared a common language, name, living space, the same friends, and enemies. Furthermore, they had the same mythology, rituals, ethnic origin, mutually dependent economic activities, social norms. The appearance of private property and redistribution of power resulted in the rise of tribal aristocracy. Tribal organization, whose aim up to then was to regulate relations within the group in a democratic manner and to ensure mutual help, became a means of preserving power, and that power was demonstrated to neighbors as well. Tribes joined to form tribe alliances and later nations.